Violence tears many people apart. What fate awaits those who flee their homes? What becomes of the children who are separated from their parents while fleeing? What happens to the sons and brothers who go off to fight? Uncertainty over the fate of a loved one causes untold suffering in wartime. International humanitarian law stresses the importance of the family unit. Parties to conflict have clear duties.
Two children lost, I don't know where they are. Two boys.
Je vais rejoindre mon grand frère qui habite au Bujumbura.
Ton grand frère qui habite à Bujumbura.
Et puis il va m'informer si notre famille d'Ongozi existe encore.
Family members separated by war are entitled to correspond with their relatives and to be reunited with them without delay.
36 kilometara je dijete od mene, a 3. godina. Sad će 3 godine da je nisam vidjela. Samo 36 kilometara, preko brda.
They also have the right to be informed of the fate of their missing relatives. In 1914, when the First World War broke out, the ICRC set up the International Agency for Prisoners of War. It then asked all the belligerents to hand over their lists of prisoners. This enabled the agency to bring news of their families to millions of men detained far from home. During the Second World War, the agency opened files on 25 million prisoners and delivered over 120 million messages to them and their families. Today, together with field offices and national Red Cross and Red Crescent societies, the ICRC's Central Tracing Agency assists all war victims, whether civilian or military. This tracing network strives to restore family links by every means possible. Without it, many families could not exchange news with their dispersed relatives. Thousands of people would remain separated from their loved ones. Often, the authorities do little to help the families, so ICRC and national society staff must step in. This takes them to remote and dangerous places. Tracing work demands time and great care, requires major resources and a constant presence in the field, close to the victims. Sometimes, with ICRC support, TV networks and local radio shows are used to help make contacts more quickly.
Liberian National Red Cross has received Red Cross messages for the fallen persons. You can contact ICRC head office on the Wishaw Island to take delivery of a Red Cross family message. Damawa Kuzu. Damawa Kuzu is the daughter of...
All persons shall be enabled to give news of a strictly personal nature to members of their families, wherever they may be, and to receive news from them. When direct contact cannot be made, when postal and telephone services have broken down, Red Cross messages are often the only way for family members to exchange news. The message form is easy to fill out. In order to safeguard its role as a neutral intermediary, the ICRC deletes any sensitive information. After a decade of separation and silence, a mother finally receives a message from her son.
Конечно, еще как беспокоилась. Ночами не спала, думала, что его нету живым.
Soon, the son receives her reply.
Получила письмо, так была рада, что поплакала от радости.
Здравствуйте.
За меня не беспокойтесь. Как будет возможность, приеду.
The Red Cross Red Crescent network provides families with various means of contacting their loved ones, according to the circumstances. These include satellite telephones, mobile phones, and websites concerning persons missing in the Balkans or in Iraq. Under international humanitarian law, persons deprived of their freedom have a right to correspond with their families. Receiving news of their relatives helps prisoners of war and civilian detainees endure their captivity. The authorities are entitled to check the contents of the messages.
Okay.
This man spent 8 years in detention.
It was the ICRC messages that comes from my loved ones, from my wife, my children, and of course the friends and relations. So I was looking forward to read these messages, and that was my most precious thing that I expect during this visit.
Maintaining contact between family members is a way to reduce the number of people who go missing. But this is only one way. The activities of the parties to the conflict and of the international humanitarian organizations shall be prompted mainly by the right of families to know the fate of their relatives. Each year, thousands of people disappear. Have they fled abroad? Are they imprisoned in a secret location? Were they killed in combat? Are they still alive? The ICRC and the national societies respond to tracing requests by gathering as much information as possible on a missing person. Last known address, marital status, circumstances in which the person was last seen, dental records, glasses, clothing. Every detail counts.
Book of the person missing.
Tracing requests are systematically passed on to the authorities, who have an obligation to search for the missing person.
Dans le cadre du processus de paix, les deux parties ont demandé au CICR de les aider. Et une des aides du CICR concerne la remise d'une liste aux autorités, une liste de disparus, dont le but est d'être un outil utile pour les autorités pour donner une réponse plausible aux familles.
The information collected serves to find the person, or, if deceased, to identify the body. Everything must be done to ensure that the families of missing persons receive the answers they deserve. Being reunited with a child or a spouse after years of separation puts an end to unbearable anguish. Before reuniting family members, the ICRC makes sure that it is safe to do so, especially in conflict zones. Family ties are checked beforehand, and the consent of the persons concerned is obtained.
Drie kinderen vanuit Somalië naar Kenia in een vluchtelingkamp. En ze zijn er. En ze hebben brieven geschreven. Ik vind het zelf ook heel geweldig.
These 3 children have at last been reunited with their mother in the country where she is now living. Priority is given to those who are most vulnerable: women alone, the elderly, and children. Children shall be provided with the care and aid they require. All appropriate steps shall be taken to facilitate the reunion of families temporarily separated. In the confusion that ensues when people flee their homes, children are often separated from their parents. They become traumatized and have no one to care for their basic needs. These children must be given all the help they require, and every effort must be made to collect information about their identity. Their photos are taken and posted in villages and refugee camps where someone might recognize them. The information obtained is compared with the tracing requests filed by families. In the absence of any request from the family, the Red Cross Red Crescent tries to locate the child's relatives, wherever they may be, in camps, villages, even in neighboring countries. Perseverance often pays off. It's a big day for Sarr. After 3 years spent in a refugee camp in Sierra Leone, Sarr is soon to be reunited with his family in Liberia. The ICRC and the Red Cross societies of Sierra Leone and Liberia managed to find Sarr and his parents and forward messages between them prior to their reunification.
Through ICRC messages, I was able to know the location of my parents, and they also know my location.
Before they cross the border, volunteers prepare Sarr and his friends for their return home.
Inside the transit center, whilst we are there, we do a lot of activities. Since these children are already traumatized, we do counseling, we also prepare their mind to go and meet their parents. You are going to start your life, going back to school, everything you are starting over, huh? The hope that you have lost, you have regained it now. The ICRC together with Sierra Leone Red Cross have made you regain your hope being lost, huh?
Sarr fled his country without any papers. At the authorities' request, the ICRC draws up a travel document in his name so that he can cross the border. This internationally recognized document is valid only for the trip home and will have to be returned to the ICRC once Sarr is safely back with his family.
Sarr Fatoma. Fatoma. Are you Silurian?
No.
You're a Liberian. Okay, so have a nice trip.
Now I think we are already in Liberia. First steps. It's just the middle of the river.
The long-awaited moment is fast approaching.
It's arrivé.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we received an RCM from the Sierra Leone end, but the address was kind of inadequate. It was just not sufficient. So we had to do tracing up and down. So upon continuous tracing, we were able to locate and trace the father. So that's how we got him. And he filled in what we call an FRRE. That's a family reunification request form. And that's how we managed to get back to the son. He wrote a reply to the son, and that's how the tracing began. And so they communicated a few times, and here we are today. We are reunifying them. So we are all grateful.
Under international humanitarian law, detainees are entitled to remain in touch with their families. When families face administrative difficulties or security threats, or if they live far away, the ICRC sometimes makes travel arrangements to where their relative is detained. Too often, however, detainees are deprived of any contact with the outside world. The ICRC may request that the detaining authorities allow or restore family visits.
Natanggap ko sir, pero parang hindi ko maano ba, makadating ba sila? Parang di ako naniniwala. Kala ko yung parang panaginip lang yun. Hindi ko naasahan. Dahil maasahan ko lang yung kung nandito na sila. Yun lang.
It's very important for the families to maintain the hope and for them to keep in touch with their relative. And also for the persons detained to see and to maintain the fact that they can restart life after the detention.
Prisoners of war shall be released and repatriated without delay after the cessation of active hostilities. Prisoners of war and civilian internees are often repatriated under ICRC auspices. Some prisoners have to wait for years after a war has ended before they are reunited with their families.
And then, every page? Yes, please.
This is a moment of intense emotion, both for those who have regained their freedom and for the families who have suffered from their long absence. Years may go by before a family can recover the body of a deceased relative. At the request of the parties to a conflict, the ICRC supervises the transfer of human remains. This event marks the beginning of a mourning process that will enable family members to rebuild their lives. The very presence of the ICRC and the national societies at the heart of a conflict makes it possible to restore contact between separated family members and to reunite them across roadblocks or front lines. Sometimes, no matter how much effort is made, a missing person cannot be found. For many people, the wounds of war will never heal. But each year, thousands of people suffer a little less. They have found their loved ones.